The original look, 1940. The Joker first appeared in Batman #1 on April 25, 1940, and he almost died in his second appearance. Created by Bob Kane, Bill Finger, and Jerry Robinson, the Joker was designed as a one-off villain who would be killed at the end of his debut story. Editor Whitney Ellsworth overruled that decision at the last minute, adding a panel suggesting the character had survived. If he hadn't, the most iconic comic book villain of all time would have been forgotten within months. The visual inspiration came from a 1928 silent film called The Man Who Laughs, starring German actor Konrad Veidt as a man whose face was surgically disfigured into a permanent grin. Robinson sketched the image onto a Joker playing card, and Finger connected it to Veidt's haunting performance. The result was a villain who looked like a playing card come to life. From day one, the costume was established. A purple suit, green hair, chalk-white skin, and red lips stretched into an eternal smile. In those early comics, the Joker dressed like a 1940s gangster. Purple trench coat, wide-brim fedora, the look of a man who'd walked out of a noir film and into a nightmare. What's remarkable is how little this basic template has changed in over 80 years. Purple suit, green hair, white face, red grin. Every Joker since has been a variation on what Kane, Finger, and Robinson created in 1940. Cesar Romero, 1966 to 1968. When the campy Batman television series premiered in 1966, producers needed someone to play the clown prince of crime. They cast Cesar Romero, a 59-year-old actor best known for playing dashing Latin lovers in romantic comedies. Nobody expected what happened next. Romero threw himself into the role with manic energy, creating a Joker who giggled and shrieked and seemed to be having the time of his life. His laugh, which he invented accidentally while looking at concept art of the costume, became iconic. But there was one problem. Romero refused to shave his mustache. The producers compromised. They simply applied the white clown makeup directly over his facial hair. If you watch the show in high definition today, you can clearly see Romero's mustache beneath the grease paint. At the time, on lower quality television screens, most viewers never noticed. The costume itself was classic comic book Joker. Purple tailcoat, green vest, orange shirt, and a green wig that Romero complained sometimes photographed red or yellow, depending on the lighting. The look was theatrical and silly, perfectly matching the show's deliberately campy tone. Romero appeared in more episodes than any other villain except Burgess Meredith's Penguin. When asked why so many talented actors wanted to play Batman villains, he had a simple answer. You got to be as hammy as you wanted, and nobody would complain. Jack Nicholson, 1989. When Tim Burton's Batman hit theaters in 1989, Jack Nicholson's Joker was a revelation. This wasn't the giggling prankster of the television series. This was a genuine monster. Funny, yes, but also terrifying. Costume designer Bob Ringwood, who also created Michael Keaton's Batsuit, designed a wardrobe that reflected the Joker's descent into madness. Ringwood studied over 200 Batman comics before settling on a Victorian-inspired aesthetic. Tailcoats, high-waisted trousers held up by suspenders, waistcoats, and flamboyant neckties. There was something theatrical about dressing a 1989 villain like a 19th-century dandy. Nicholson had significant input into his costumes. The specific shade of purple, that was his choice. He wanted it to match the colors of his favorite basketball team, the Los Angeles Lakers. The suits were custom-made by legendary Savile Row tailor Tommy Nutter, the same designer who'd dressed the Beatles. What made Ringwood's approach brilliant was how the costumes evolved throughout the film. As the Joker became more unhinged, his outfits became more vibrant and outrageous. The colors intensified. The patterns clashed more aggressively. By the final confrontation in the cathedral, the Joker's costume was practically screaming. The makeup, created by Nick Dudman, involved prosthetics that gave Nicholson an enlarged chin and permanent rictus grin. The effect was both comic and horrifying, exactly what Burton wanted. Nicholson never just wore a costume, he inhabited it. Mark Hamill's animated Joker, 1992, Batman. The animated series didn't just create a cartoon, it defined how an entire generation understood the Joker. The visual design, developed by Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski, stripped the character down to his essential elements: a pointed chin, angular features, a shock of green hair swept upward, and that impossible grin filled with teeth. The show's Dark Deco art style, a blend of 1940s noir and Art Deco futurism, gave the Joker a timeless quality. He could have existed in any era. Tim Curry was originally cast to voice the character, but after recording 4 episodes, producer Alan Burnett pushed to recast the role. The official explanation was bronchitis. The real reason seems to have been that Curry's interpretation was deemed too sinister for a children's show. Ironic, given that Curry had played Pennywise the Clown just 2 years earlier. Mark Hamill, fresh off a guest appearance as a different character, lobbied for the part. When he auditioned, he looked at the concept art of the Joker's massive teeth and thought about the blue meanies from Yellow Submarine. The voice he created, manic, theatrical, capable of shifting from a joke to a murder within the same sentence, became definitive. The animated Joker wore the classic purple suit with orange shirt and green tie, but the design was so streamlined and iconic that it influenced every Joker that followed. When the new Batman Adventures launched in 1997, the design was updated. Darker colors, black eyes, no red lips. The Joker looked less like a clown and more like something from a nightmare. Heath Ledger, 2008. Christopher Nolan didn't want a comic book Joker. He wanted chaos in human form. Costume designer Lindy Hemming imagined someone who'd worn the same clothes for years. The purple suit remained, but it was worn and mismatched. A long overcoat, patterned vest, blue-green shirt, and pinstripe trousers inspired by punk figures like Iggy Pop and Johnny Rotten. Nolan's only rule was simple. Nothing should look new. This Joker wasn't putting on a costume. He had always existed in it. The makeup, created by John Caglione Jr. with Ledger's input, was deliberately messy, smeared, cracked, and decaying, inspired partly by Francis Bacon paintings. The Glasgow smile scars turned the grin into something physical and permanent, with no clear origin, making it even more disturbing. Ledger's performance earned a posthumous Academy Award, and his gritty suit and makeup remain one of the most iconic villain looks ever put on screen. Jared Leto, 2016. David Ayer's Suicide Squad introduced a Joker unlike anything audiences had seen before, and the reaction was complicated. Gone was the purple suit entirely. Leto's Joker was shirtless, tattooed, and dripping with gold jewelry. He looked less like a comic book villain and more like a SoundCloud rapper who'd gone completely off the rails. The aesthetic was modern crime boss meets Instagram influencer. Purple Lamborghini, silver teeth, crocodile skin coats. The most controversial element was the damaged tattoo scrawled across the Joker's forehead. Ayer has since admitted he regrets the decision, revealing it was originally supposed to say blessed. The tattoos were meant to tell a story, each one referencing moments from the Joker's history with Batman, but audiences largely found them alienating rather than intriguing. The in-universe explanation was that the tattoos represented the Joker's response to Batman breaking his teeth and locking him in Arkham Asylum. The damaged label was supposedly him trolling Batman, marking himself as a broken thing. Whether that justification worked depended entirely on who you asked. When Leto returned for Zack Snyder's Justice League in 2021, the damaged tattoo was conspicuously absent. The longer hair and more traditional look suggested even the filmmakers had learned something from the backlash. Joaquin Phoenix, 2019. Todd Phillips' Joker did something no previous version had attempted. It showed the costume being assembled. Costume designer Mark Bridges, a two-time Oscar winner, approached Arthur Fleck's wardrobe as a character study. The film is set in early 1980s Gotham, and everything Arthur wears reflects his limited means. Thrift store finds, clothes that don't quite fit, colors that clash in unflattering ways. The Joker costume itself isn't purple. It's red, a deep maroon suit that Arthur already owned, worn to his disastrous stand-up comedy appearance. The gold vest came from his clown-for-hire costume. The green shirt was already in his closet. When Arthur becomes the Joker, he doesn't buy a new outfit. He recombines pieces of his old life into something new. Bridges designed the suit with a longer jacket line inspired by 1970s Yves Saint Laurent, elegant in a way Arthur Fleck never was. When Phoenix put on the complete costume for the first time, his body language changed completely. The actor described it as Arthur going from a shell of himself to someone confident and powerful. The choice to abandon purple was deliberate. Phillips and Bridges wanted to signal that this was a different kind of Joker story, a character study rather than a superhero film. The red suit, eventually intensified slightly in color for the final scenes, became iconic in its own right, inspiring countless Halloween costumes and proving that the Joker could be reinvented without purple. Barry Keoghan, 2022 to present. When the Batman arrived in 2022, it introduced a Joker who felt less like a performer and more like a pathology. Played by Barry Keoghan, this version appears as an Arkham inmate already deep into his transformation, suggesting a long, unseen history with Batman. Instead of theatrical makeup, the design leans into physical realism. His skin is scarred and uneven, his hair thin, and his grin appears permanent, more the result of trauma or a congenital condition than a painted smile. Prosthetic designer Mike Marino approached the look as if the Joker's face itself tells the story, removing the sense that this is a costume at all. Costuming is deliberately minimal. Institutional clothing replaces the iconic purple suit, reinforcing the idea that this Joker exists beyond performance. He doesn't dress like chaos, he simply is chaos. With The Batman, Part 2 expected to expand the role, Keoghan's interpretation may define the character for this new cinematic era. That covers every major Joker look from comics to film. Drop a comment and tell us which version is your favorite. Hit subscribe for more deep dives, and remember, whatever you do, don't forget to smile.